All right, so this is Unit 1. Let's go ahead, and you should have your packet with you, just because this is going to tell you what it's going to have all of your examples and stuff, and you can just go along and fill in what I'm doing or what we're doing as I'm doing it, and you can rewind and look at this multiple times, just so that way it helps and benefits you. All right, so if you look at page 1, when you open your foldable, if you look, this is just our standards. It tells you that we're going to be looking at rational exponents. We're going to be extending them. We're going to show the notation for radicals and rational exponents. Your learning targets are also listed on here, so you can always go back and look at these if you're ever curious about what we're going to be doing. Okay? So go ahead and turn to page 2, and we're going to start the exponent properties. Now, there are 8 of these, but in this lesson you're just going to hear about 7. We're going to go back and we're going to learn about the 8th one next after you've got these down. But the first one is a product property. The word product means that something has been multiplied. Okay? So somewhere or another, something has been multiplied. Now, if you look at this, a to the m is being multiplied by a to the n. You don't see that multiplication sign there, but you know that it is because they're next to each other. Okay? To multiply powers with the same base, you add the exponents and keep the base. So if I look at the example I have here, a to the m is times a to the n. A is my base. My base is whatever the exponent is connected to. All right? So I'm going to keep my base. Then, since I have the same base, I can take my exponents and I'm going to add them together. So you can see here, I've taken and I have added my m plus my n. So bases are the same, add exponents, all right? So if we look at this, x squared times x cubed, I have the same base, so I'm going to keep that base. And then I'm going to take and I'm going to multiply, or sorry, they're being multiplied, so I'm going to add my exponents, so 2 plus 3. Now I'm going to go ahead and simplify that down, and I'm going to get x to the 5th. And that is my answer for that one. So your key thing here is going to be same base, then that means that I'm going to add my exponents. Okay? All right, our next one is the quotient property. And if you remember, the word quotient means that something has been divided. Now, this little symbol right here lets me know that I have something divided by something. All right? So I have a to the m, and it's being divided by a to the n. So again, to divide powers with the same base, subtract the exponents, but keep your base. So again, my base is a because it is my big number. That is what my exponents are connected to, so I'm going to keep that a. All right? Well, I'm being divided. They're being divided, so I'm going to take my exponents. And this little sign right here can let you know I'm going to subtract them, okay? So I'm taking my exponents and I'm subtracting them from each other. One thing that you need to note, the numerator exponent always goes first. Okay? And you can see that right here. I have my m, and it is first. Okay? So the one on top is always first. So let's try it with this one. We have x as our base. So we're going to keep that base. Since we're dividing, we're going to subtract those two. My biggest one, or my one on top, goes first. So 5 minus 3, and that's equal to x squared. Now, it don't matter if the one on top is a smaller number, you're still going to put it first, all right? Now, your key point here that you need to remember is they have the same base. Then I'm going to subtract my exponents. All right? All right, the third one is a power to a power. The word power, which is used twice here, also means exponent. So I have an exponent to an exponent. That means I have one exponent, which is my m right here, is being raised by another exponent. All right? So to raise a power to a power, or to raise an exponent to an exponent, keep your base, which is still the number that has the exponent attached to it. You're going to keep the base and you're going to multiply. So I have a power to a power. I'm going to multiply these two, okay? Now, one thing to be able to notice to keep these separate is these two are next to each other. Normally when you have two numbers next to each other, then you're going to multiply them. To know to keep these two, the first one right here, to add it, remember there's going to be a base between your exponents. So I have a base of A between my m and my n. So that means I'm going to have to add them. When I have my exponents next to each other, then I'm going to multiply, okay? So I take and I just set my exponents next to each other. So that way I know to multiply them. Now let's try this one. We have x as our base, so we're going to keep that. And we have 5 and 3, so we're going to multiply those two. So 5 times 3. Now if we multiply that on out, we get x to the 15th. And that's our answer for that one. Okay? All right. Next, we have product to a power. So this means we're going to have multiplication right here, multiplication, and this is going to be an exponent. So we're going to have multiplication to an exponent, all right? And as you can see, A and B are being multiplied together, and they're raised to an exponent. So to raise a product to a power, raise each factor to the power. So that means I'm just going to take and distribute my M to my A and to my B. I'm going to distribute it to everything inside there, okay? All right, so if we look at this next one, all right, and you can see where we have A to the M and then B to the M. We just took that M to everything. So if we look at the next one, we have x to the 4th, y to the 5th, and that is raised to the 3rd. So I'm going to distribute my 3 to the x to the 4th, and I'm going to distribute my 3 to the y to the 5th. Now, if you look back at number 3, a power to a power, which is what's going on right here, and it's actually going on here with the 4 and the 3. A power to a power, we're going to multiply our exponents. So we're going to have x 4th to the 3rd, y 5 to the 3rd. Sorry, x to the 4th times 3 and y to the 5th times 3. Now I can simplify that out, and I get x to the 12th, y to the 15th. Okay? Now, the key point that you need to remember here is distribute to everything. Now, I want you to know that's everything in parentheses. If there's something on the outside, you do not distribute it to what's on the outside, just everything in the parentheses, all right? All right, our 5th one is a quotient to a power. So we're going to have division, and we're going to have it raised to an exponent. So if you see this, our A and our B are being divided and it's being raised by n. So again, we're going to take and just distribute to everything in parentheses. And then we have A to the n and B to the n. All right? Now let's try this. We have x divided by y raised to the third. So we're going to distribute to x. We're going to distribute to y. So we end up with x cubed over y cubed. Now again, your key note in here is the same thing as it is in the other one. Distribute to everything in the parentheses. All right, so just make sure it goes to everything in the parentheses. All right, now this is the easiest one, I do think. So it's the zero exponent. Any number raised to zero is equal to 1. All right? As you can see, A has 0 power, so we get 1 as our answer. All right? Now, if we look at 125x squared, that's raised to the 0. Now, if we look back up to the number for our product to a power, 125 and x are being multiplied. Okay? So I'm going to distribute this 0 to the 125 and to the 2. Even if I have a whole number in parentheses, I'm still going to distribute that 0 or that number that I have as an exponent on the outside. I'm still going to distribute it to the whole number and to the exponent of my variable. So 125 to the 0 power is 1. X squared to the 0 power is 1. So 1 times 1 is 1, and that is my answer. All right. Now, this next one is a little bit different. We have 125 times x to the 0. My 0 is only raising my x because there are no parentheses. So this is the only thing that's being raised by 1 or by 0. So my 125 is going to stay the same because it has nothing raised in it. So I have 125, and then x to the 0 power is 1. Since they're multiplying, I'll multiply them together still. 125 times 1 is 125. And that is your answers for those. All right, we have one more, and then we're going to practice some, so that way we can make sure that you are good to go. All right, so we have the negative exponent. So negative exponent indicates that there's reciprocation. This word right here, reciprocation, is very important. I want you to highlight it. I want you to mark it. I want you to do something on your paper in your book, okay? The word reciprocation means fraction, okay? And you need to know that. The word reciprocation means fraction. Somewhere in here, I'm going to either start or end in a fraction, okay? I'm going to start in a fraction, end in a fraction, but I know that I'm going to have a fraction because of the word of negative exponent, all right? So, to cause it to become positive, I'm going to have to flip what I have. Now, if we look at a to the negative n, I have my base, but my exponent is what is negative, all right? Now, reciprocation does not mean fraction. I'm ahead here. Reciprocation means reciprocal, which means to flip. Sorry, it needs to be flip. So fix that. I'm so sorry. It means to flip it. So when you flip it, it becomes positive. All right? So our a to the negative n is going to have to be flipped. Now, I'm going to flip this whole thing right here because the a is connected to the exponent. the only time that you will move everything is if it's in parentheses and there's a negative connected to it. If there's just one thing that has a negative, that's the only thing you do, okay? Well, this is over 1, because any whole number is over 1. Well, I want to make this positive and work with a positive exponent. I cannot deal with negatives. If you see a negative, you want to get it out. You don't want to mess with it. So you're going to take and flip that. My 1 goes to the top, and my A to the N goes to the bottom. Now, as you can see, my N has become positive. Because once I flip that, I then have a positive exponent. Now, I have A to the negative 2. It is over 1. If I flip that, I'm going to put 1 on top, and then A squared. The negative goes off of it. Now, I can go ahead and simplify this out, and I get 1 over 64. And that is my answer for that one. All right. Now we have a fraction. We started with a fraction, and we have a negative exponent on the bottom. This negative exponent is only on the x. It's not connected to the 2 because there's not a parenthesis there. So what's going to happen is I'm just going to take this and go to the top with it. The 2 is going to stay where it's at, so I can leave 1 over 2, and I'm going to take x cubed and go to the top with it. So this would end up being my final answer. Now, if it's on top, it goes to the bottom to become positive. If it's a negative on the bottom, it goes to the top to become positive. So just remember that. It's going to change the place that it's at. And it's going to, if it's on the top, it's going to go to the bottom. If it's on the bottom, it's going to go to the top. All right, now here is the practice. I want you to use the notes that you've had. And then pause the video. Use the notes that you've got to try to work these out. Then you can unpause and see if you've got what I got and see if it helps you at all. Okay? So number 1, I'm going to take and distribute my 3. So I have 2 times 2 raised to the 3rd power, an x, and I have a power raised to a power, so I'm going to multiply 2 times 3. Now I know that I can go ahead and do 2 to the 3rd power 2 cubed. Do not multiply those, okay? Do not multiply those. That is 2 times 2 times 2. 2 times 2 times 2 is 8, okay? Because this one gives me 4, and then these 2 together give me 8. All right, and then 2 times 3 is 6. So that is my final answer. All right, number 2. I'm distributing to everything in the parentheses. So my 2 stays on the outside. Then I have 3 cubed. I have a power to a power, so I'm going to multiply again. Now, I'm going to get 2. 3 cubed is 27, and that's x to the 6th. If I wanted to go ahead and simplify this out, I would have 54 x to the 6th. Okay? All right, number 3. I have a negative exponent. So I'm going to take it, I'm going to move this to the top. So I have 1 x to the 1st over 2. All right, number 4. I'm dividing. I have the same base, so I'm going to subtract my 2 exponents. So I keep my base, which is 4. 4 to the 6th minus 3, and that's going to equal 4/3. Now you can leave it this way, or you can go ahead and get your answer, which is 64. Number 5, I have a quotient to a power. So I'm going to distribute my 4 to everything in the parentheses. All right? So I have x to the 4th over y to the 4th. And that is my final answer for that one. All right, number 6. I do have a negative, but first I want to distribute my 3. Now this one can be a little tricky because you're used to seeing exponents, or not exponents, but variables. All I have is a 5 to the negative 2 there. I don't have a variable, but my 5 is being raised to the negative 2, so I'm just going to have to distribute this to the negative 2, okay? So I end up with 5, and it's a power to a power, so I'm going to multiply to the negative 2 times 3, which is equal to 5 to the negative 6. Now I want to get rid of this negative exponent, and to do that, this is over 1, I'm going to have to flip it, so 1 over 5 to the 6th. Now a big one like that you can leave, unless you have a calculator. You don't have to do it all the way. All right. Number 7, if I distribute this 0 to the 7 and to the a squared, that's going to be 1 times 1, okay? And that is 1. Then I'm going to distribute 3a, so that's 1 times 1, which is 1. Now, if you look at this, this one's a little bit tricky. I do have a minus sign, and this is not the answer, but I do have a minus sign right in the middle. So 1 minus 1 is equal to 0. You're not going to see too many like that, but I wanted you to be able to see that process to be able to get that right, okay? All right, now number 8, we have 5x cubed. We have this one, and this is where I was talking about. This one has a variable with it, so I'm going to take and raise the x cubed to the 0 and the 5 to the 0, because my exponent goes to my variable in this one. So 5 raised to the 0 is 1, x cubed raised to the 0 is 1, so 1 times 1 is 1. And there's your answer for those 8. Now if you turn over to page 4, we have a few more that I want us to practice, and then we'll be done in this lesson. So we have a product property. We have the base of a. We'll keep it since they're being multiplied. We are going to add our exponents to 6 plus 3. That is equal to a to the 9th. All right. 10, we're distributing this 5 to everything. So the 4, the a squared, and the b cubed. So 4 to the 5th, a, and that's a power raised to a power, so 2 times 5. And then b, 3 times 5. And I'm going to end with 4 to the 5th, a to the 10th, b to the 15th. And then if you want to go ahead and simplify this out, you're going to end up getting 1,024, a to the 10th, b to the 15th. If you don't have a calculator on you, just leave it like this. I'm fine with that. But try to do it with a calculator just to get used to getting that on out, because in the next units you will have to simplify on out. All right, number 11, we have a power to a power. So x to the 5th times 2, which is x to the 10th. All right, number 12, we have a negative exponent. We know that this is over 1, so we're going to flip it. So 1 to the 6th fourth, okay? And you can leave that one unless you have a calculator. All right, number 13 and 14, I want us to take it slow because this one can get tricky. Both of these can get tricky, but all you have to do is just break it down. And this is what I encourage you to do. 2 and 4 go together. The x and the x, y and the y, and the z and the z. So that way you're just working with one thing at a time, okay? So I have to look and see, okay, 2 and 4, that needs to go ahead, and I'll need to look at that and see if I can simplify it, okay? Well, 2 and 4 have a factor of 2, so I can divide 2 by 2, and I can divide 4 by 2. And I'm going to end up with 1/2. All right, now one thing that I want you to know is when we start doing this, we have quotient property here, here, and here. Whenever you're doing quotient property, you only do it with the variables. The numbers you need to go ahead and simplify. But your quotient property, you're going to subtract your exponents. No matter what your answer is to begin with, you're going to do it on top, okay? So I'm going to have x, and then 1 on top goes first, so 2 minus a negative 3, y to the negative 3 minus, I didn't mean to put that parenthesis there, hang on a second. minus 1, because if there's not an exponent there, there is a 1. And then z to the first minus a negative 3. All right? Now I can simplify that. So I have 1 over 2. 2 minus a negative, so that makes that a positive, so x to the fifth. Negative 3 minus 1 is y to the negative 4. And then z, 1 minus a negative 3 makes that a positive 3, so to the positive 4. Now I need to look at this. And right here, I have a negative exponent. So that needs to move to the bottom, but that is all. Everything else stays where it's at because that exponent is only connected to the y, okay? So my final answer is going to be 1 x to the fifth, z to the fourth, over 2 y to the fourth, because when I moved it down, it made it positive, okay? All right, I'm going to extend this page just a little bit so we have room to do number 14. All right, this one's a little bit different because we need to take and distribute this 2 to everything inside of the parentheses, okay? All right, so we'll have 6 squared, x, and we have a power to a power, so we're multiplying. And then this is going to be a 1 there, so 1 times 2. Now, we need to do the bottom the same way, so 2 squared, x, and that's 1 times 2, y 2 times 2. All right? Then we're going to end up 6 squared is 36, x 2 times 2 is x to the fourth, y to the 1 times 2 is just y squared. And that is going to be over 2 squared is 4, x to the 1 times 2 is x squared, y to the 2 times 2 is y to the fourth. Now I'm going to do like I did in the other one, and I'm going to break it up into sections. So I'm going to look, and I'm going to see, the 36 and 4 have something in common. If you put that in your calculator, you will see that they are both divisible by 4. So 36 divided by 4 is 9, and 4 divided by 4 is 1. So if you want to put the 1 down there, you can. Now remember, when we subtract these, they all have to go on top. So x, 4 minus 2, y, 2 minus 4. Okay? So I end up with 9 over 1. 4 minus 2 is squared, x squared. 2 minus 4 is y to the negative 2. Now, I have that negative exponent. I need to move to the bottom. Everything else is going to stay on top, all right? Let me extend this one more time so we can do that. So I end up with 9x squared over 1y squared. And that is my answer for that. All right, so go back and practice this. If you want more practice, I can give you more practice. But this is a good start. Just if you need to watch this again, watch it again, and it will help.